Okay, so we're talking about this debate that's been catching fire on social media for the past 3 days, 4 days, something like that, pretty much since the beginning of the week. It's now Saturday, and I don't know if it's even died down yet, but it was first posted on Tim Urban's Twitter page, and then Mr. Beast said, hey, can I didn't even know that he went directly to Tim Urban and said, hey, do you mind if I share this? And Tim just said, go for it. So the original question, it's a poll, as he worded it, that says, everyone in the world has to take a private vote by pressing a red or blue button. If more than 50% of people press the blue button, everyone survives. If less than 50% of people press the blue button, only people who press the red button survive. Which button would you press? And then Mr. Beast said, can I tweet this and see what the results are? And Tim said, go for it. He pretty much worded it the same way and just added in "be honest" at the end of it. And as you can see,
which I hate, by the way, because as if people are actually able to put themselves in that situation and know what they would do. Like Spirit Airlines closing today is a great example of people having no idea what they would actually do in a real scenario. You ask anybody, would you like to pay less for airlines and get rid of the snacks, get rid of checked bags, have a little less seats, but pay $200 less for your flight? Everybody goes, yeah, of course I would rather. And then no one signs up for Spirit Airlines and they go out of business. So people don't really know. So the idea of just going, be honest, doesn't do anything.
Was there a poll about that?
No, I'm saying that like the idea behind the budget airlines was that there was so much pressure from the general population that they wanted a cheaper airfare option. So then they got one and then they didn't support it and now it's dead. And that's been the story of a lot of budget options. People tell you they want lower prices, but they're not really willing to accept worse service. They just end up comparing their experience flying Delta to flying Spirit and going, that was horrible.
Well, I mean, it probably wouldn't be the worst idea to explain what both of our positions are. The doorbell's ringing. I'm not answering it. It probably wouldn't be the worst idea to tell what both of our positions are. I chose blue, and you chose red, and I didn't even realize that. When I posted it on Facebook, I thought my Facebook was just private, but I had strangers coming to like fight with me for like 2 or 3 days. No, it was 2 days really. That there was this one guy who wouldn't stop fighting with me, and I'm like, where did this guy even come from? Like, but I guess it pissed him off enough that I was just as crazy as him because I didn't stop arguing it either, but
You were one of the first people that responded to. I shared the tweet and said it's crazy how many people really think that blue would win. And you were one of the first people that responded to mine. I think mine ended up with like a couple 100,000 impressions, and I eventually had to stop reading the comments. Like you said, too many people were just getting unhinged about it. So I ended up ignoring the comments. But you were one of the early people that commented on my tweet. So I engaged back and forth with you quite a bit. And then I ended up ignoring most of the preceding comments because they were almost always the same, and I just didn't want to keep having the same conversation. But then you said, maybe we should get on a stream and talk about it. So I thought, yeah, it sounds like a good time.
Yeah, the other guy who seemed like he was going back and forth even more with me than you were. He was like, I'll pass, sorry, which I totally understand that because there's many reasons.
He's a good guy. Yeah, I remember the thread you're talking about. Yeah, he's a good guy. I don't blame people for not wanting to engage in it further. I was tired of the keyboarding back and forth on Twitter, so I just muted my own tweet. But I think there's something more interesting about having like a real verbal exchange than just tweeting back and forth where people can like read what you're saying and kind of misunderstand and then weigh in on specific parts. And then I think it kind of, the Twitter debate gets tiring, but I think this is an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, well, another thing about the poll is the wording says everyone. Now, a lot of people are unclear about what that means, everyone.
Right.
So one only like a couple of people who have posted it. Like I've seen a couple of people make videos about it. Say everyone over the age of 18 who has the functionality to make a decision, to actually make a decision. Which that's what I would go with if I wanted to really have a discussion about this. But then somebody actually asked Tim Urban, which I'll bring that up. Where is it here? Where is it? This one. This guy said, you ruined it with this bullshit. Which he did ruin it with this bullshit. He said, Tim, people are having a debate. By private vote, do you mean fully on your own without influence, meaning every toddler will be teleported to a private booth to randomly mash a button? And he said, yes. In which case, it's like, that really does ruin the conversation.
Right. It ruins it because now it's just about like, globally, of course, we all have to come together to press blue to save the children. But that's just ridiculous because like an infant physically could not press a button.
People in a coma can't press a button.
Right. You'd leave the infant in the room for days and it would just die before it ever pressed a button. So that made it kind of like a bad faith argument to me. Like I interpret it as parents will decide for their children. I just thought like, of course, right? Like we're not just leaving it up to just complete randomness. Look, if the world was going to globally come together and have a conversation about it, and there was time for a campaign to get everyone to vote blue, that's the only scenario in my mind that blue could win.
Yeah, and I think in that scenario, we'd have to vote blue simply because people can, even if every world leader came together and said, okay, everybody, we're pushing red. Make sure everyone you know is pushing
lots
red,
of people would still
or they're
going
to be screwed. They would still push blue by accident. Because people can absolutely push a button by accident. They go, okay, so blue, I live, right? Oh, wait, no.
Right, yeah. They just misunderstand, yeah.
So now you have to press blue just to protect those people. You know?
Right. I mean, I think we're aligned that theoretically blue is the optimal outcome.
A lot of the red pushers think that way. You know, I don't mean to interrupt you, but yes, a lot of the red pushers yourself do also think that blue should win. But it's a difference of you're betting on if it will.
Right, and it's not even so much you're betting on it. I just think that, it's like you're asking someone to take the ultimate risk, which is death, for the infinitely small chance of any impact at all. So it's almost just a symbolic vote, right? Like the actual, like what do you think the odds are that it's 4 billion to 4 billion split dead even and your vote is the deciding factor? Like what do you think the odds of that are?
I would say that you're one. I mean, when has any election ever been won by one vote in the history of anything?
Never, ever.
When you're talking about a whole country.
Yeah, now you're adding in 8 billion people. So you got to figure your vote for blue is entirely symbolic. And I use the term virtue signaling, which people hated. That's what got a lot of comments. I get it. That's a charged term. Symbolic is the better term. Your vote isn't effectively doing anything, right? So the reason that I said red is clearly the correct choice is because you as the individual will get in front of those two buttons, and whether you realize it or not, whether you voted blue on Twitter or not, if you got in front of the two buttons, you would think, well, my vote doesn't really matter. So even though I told everyone else to vote blue and I think blue should win, I'll just do red to be safe. So many people will do that red is guaranteed to win. So there's no scenario that if blue is narrowly winning a Twitter poll that you're going to win the real vote. So my reason for voting red was I just rather live than die. To me, blue is a sure death. If only 54% of Twitter is voting blue, when they got in front of the button and their life was on the line, they would, of course, come to the correct realization that their individual vote doesn't really matter. So they might as well just do red to be safe.
Adrenaline.
And to me, that ends the whole thing.
Adrenaline might kick in, but also because if adrenaline kicks in, then your primal self-preservation instincts would come into play and say, I gotta push red to live if adrenaline is kicking in. That's very possible.
Even with no adrenaline, I would go in there with no adrenaline. I wouldn't be sweating it because I'd already know what I was going to do. But even if I didn't have any adrenaline and I thought I was going to vote blue, I still think your logical brain would still tell you, completely logic-based, no emotion, no adrenaline, your logical brain would tell you the odds of my vote impacting this are essentially zero, right? It's 0.000001. chance that I impact the outcome. So why would I throw away my one life? I'm not going to throw that away to effectively move the needle zero. So I'll just go ahead and hit red.
But if you have people who are close to you, whether they're family or close friends, and you are in isolation and you don't know how they're voting, that was big thing.
You're
for
not
me.
effectively, but you still can't change anything. I would be devastated, and I would really hope that blue would win. But I just don't think that if I controlled even 1% of the voting body, if they said, all right, your vote will count for, let's call it 80 million, and I would say, you know what, fine. I'll risk my life to move the needle 1%. I still think blue loses. But if I'm controlling 1% of the voting block, I'll risk my life. But not to control 0.0001. Even if I knew my family voted blue, I just don't even see how you rationalize, okay, I'll just
I just know that if I push red and then red won, and then I realized that my parents and my girlfriend pressed blue, then I'd be like, oh, shit. What?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you found out that the results were 7 billion to 1 billion, would you still wish you pushed blue?
That might
want it to be 1 billion and 1?
Feel better about it once I heard the results, if that's really what it was. But
see, I think every single election that I've ever lived through, I've always looked at the results and thought, well, it's big enough gap. No one should feel bad about how they voted. No one person should feel bad, right? Like, people that really hate whoever gets elected, they're like, oh, it's your fault. It's like, no, it's never someone's fault. Like it's always, millions and millions of gap of votes that affected it. So no one person should shoulder the blame. That's needlessly toxic, in my opinion, to put that on yourself.
Well, I kind of came at it from an angle that I thought that the button that you press is the button that you want to win. Because people call blue the suicide button, but it's I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I'm not suicidal if I want blue to win. You know what I mean?
No, but I want blue to win. I'm rooting for blue.
If blue killed me, then I'd be suicidal to press blue. If blue automatically killed me, then I'd be suicidal to press blue. But I don't think red people are selfish for pushing red. They're just doing the self-preservationist thing. I have never called anyone. All the people I've been bickering with for the past however many days, I didn't call any of them selfish, but all of them called me stupid. And it's like, okay, I'm stupid, whatever. But even if...
No, I don't think it's stupid. I think it's just idealistic. I think you're idealistic, but I also think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding of what voting blue does.
There is. That's what I mean. There is a misunderstanding because of how many different ways there are to phrase the question.
What was that?
Because of how many different ways there are to phrase the question, there's going to be misunderstandings. You know what I mean? Because one guy even said, I explained it to my wife one way, and she chose red. Then I explained it to her another way, and she chose blue, not even realizing that it was the same question.
Yeah. See, I think a lot of the blue voters are just picking the side that would be better if it won. Right. And then that's why they're getting mad, because they're like, how do you not see that it's better if blue wins? And it's like, well, no, of course I see it's better if blue wins. It's better it's better for everybody to live than for some people to die. That's not the debate. It's whether or not blue could win if it was really put to a vote. I think it's zero chance blue would win unless there was a globally coordinated effort where every world leader was we have to do blue.
Right.
Everyone's going to push blue, so you're not really at risk. Don't worry. You'd have to get everyone to believe that they're not really at risk of dying because everyone is going to push blue. And then it'd be a 90-10 split towards blue, and that's the only way I think you get people to do blue.
Well, what this guy said that you were talking about, who was also talking about it with me, he said, yes, all rational people, regardless of the side they picked. Oh, wait, no, let me go up here. You shouldn't, he said, whether you land on 50% survival or 80% versus 0.00 whatever percent impact, you're taking significant risk for minimal reward. You shouldn't advocate others to either. So he's saying advocate. I'm opening up something I shouldn't be opening up now. You shouldn't advocate. Let me close this for a second. He's talking about advocating like it's something that anyone will be able to do. There's no advocating. If you're in isolation, nobody's advocating.
All right. So if you're in isolation, I genuinely believe the chances of blue winning are 0.0. I don't think there's any shot. Like, I think it's truly impossible for blue to win. If everyone is in isolation and they don't know what other people are going to do, I mean, you just cannot. You couldn't even make an argument that would start to make me believe it's possible that blue would actually win.
Are you familiar with this blender theory?
I've seen any other phrasing of this. Because blue loses,
the
right?
blender theory says one person jumps into a blender, and then the other people have to jump into the blender to stop it from spinning, so that other people don't die. Everyone in the world has to decide whether to step into the blender. If at least 50% of the people do step into the blender, it will be unable to overcome their inertia to get started, and everyone survives. If less than 50% of people step into the blender, then they all get blended up into paste and die. People who do not step into the blender suffer no adverse effects. Would you step into the blender? And I think everyone is just like Tim said. When Tim found out about this poll, he said, the thing is, the phrasing is part of the consideration. With phrasing like this, blue would never win. And I agree with him that with phrasing like that, blue would never win. But that's not how the original question was presented to everyone who voted on it,
right,
on Tim Urban's page or Mr. Beast's page, which is why it won in both of those places, because with the phrasing as they put it, at least in this hypothetical scenario, a lot of people thought that blue was the better option. But if it was presented to people in isolation, the way that it's presented to them in the blender scenario, I think pretty much everybody would go, fuck that. I'm not stepping into the blender. But it wasn't phrased that way.
I think it really just comes down to whether or not we're like, the way I interpret the question, which you're saying as well, is that we're just being taken into a room out of nowhere and we have to make this vote.
Right.
And even if we know that kids are going to push blue, there's still no scenario blue wins.
Yeah, see, that's what a lot of red pushers said. A lot of red pushers said, I don't even care if little kids are pushing blue. I'm still pushing red. You know, to which
it doesn't make any sense. It's truly the suicide button. I know you don't interpret it that way, but
if it loses, it's the suicide button.
And I'm telling you, it's a 100% lock to lose. Like, it's my job to handicap how likely things are.
Even based on, because then there's this other poll, because people also tried to frame it as a political thing. I've had a lot of people. I've had a lot of people say.
Again, now the blue and red is intentional as well by Tim, right? Like you're playing into identity politics.
It's
the people. It definitely is trying to get people to feel like blue is virtuous and caring about others. Red is selfish and not caring about others, right? Like, that's the way our political parties are portrayed. I'm personally not. I hate both political parties. I think they're both awful. But I think that that's how a lot of people view it, right? And so people want to pick blue just because they think that's the right thing to do. And it is the right thing to do if you have influence.
Yeah.
Like, you got to determine the outcome. Of course, blue is the right answer. But the reason red's the right answer as an individual is because red's going to win, for sure.
Well, I mean, the people who were coming at it politically were saying, typical liberals, you want everybody else to save you instead of saving yourself.
Right,
but meanwhile, this guy conducted a poll where he said, we asked this to a large, David Shore, I believe his name is, we asked this to a large sample of nationally representative Americans. And it says everyone, Biden-Harris voters, 74% press blue and 12% press red. Swing voters, 59% press blue, 22% press red. Trump voters, 55% pressed blue and 31% pressed red out of, I think it says, 2,692 responses, which is not as big as the other two polls, but it's still a decent-sized poll, so it's even, you can't even really slant it politically either, I don't think, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you'd of course expect it to lean red, and a lot of the red pushers that are really aggressive are also complete morons. Like, they're on the right side for the totally wrong reasons, right? Like, they're coming at it from, well, everyone should just press red. Like, that doesn't work, right?
Exactly. Like that's the point I've been making. In no world does that happen, that everyone does anything.
It'll never happen. The answer is just we're placed in a very unfortunate situation where 5 to 10% of people are going to wind up dead. Right. And like, there's just no way around it. Like, your one extra vote doesn't take it from 1 billion votes to 4.1 billion. So it takes it to 1,000,000,001. There's just no scenario where blue gets over half the votes. So even though it's tragic that some kids will push the wrong thing, and then some really caring people will delusionally push blue thinking that maybe they could help, they're like, you're not really helping. You're just suiciding.
But even though blue won all these major polls, you still say blue has no shot in real life.
No shot
in real life. Interesting.
Because too many of the voters think that they're voting on which side would be better.
Okay. Which side would be better, as opposed to which one is more likely?
No, which they're not saying which button would I actually push if my life was on the line. They're saying which outcome should we all be hoping happens. Like, right. There's enough people who are misunderstanding the poll and thinking that they get to decide that blue wins.
Right.
Like, a lot of people in my comments were like, why would you ever want red to win if you could have blue win? Like, that's why they voted blue. Like, that's not the question. Of course I want blue to win. It's like, the question is, which one would I actually push? And I know blue won't win. So that's why I push red, because it's just life or death. It's literally, that's all the question is at that point. It's just, I sure hope not that many people push blue, because they're all gone.
The thing I don't understand is that despite the fact that blue won in all these polls, the people that I see being the most vocal in all of the comment sections are red pushers who are calling everybody stupid. And I'm like, where are all the blue pushers in the comment sections? Like, they're not even there. It seems like...
Well, they were in my comment sections.
Yeah, I saw
they
some
were in mine. You know, they were in mine saying, you know, you're a horrible guy, you should want blue to win. And I was just like, I do. I would be great if blue could somehow win this. And I said, like, if there was a globally coordinated effort, if they said this vote is happening in a month, well, then I might vote blue with everybody else that I know, because we all believe blue will win. But if it's just we're suddenly pulled aside and you got to make this choice, you know, most people around the world are just going to freak out and push red. I mean, they're not just going to bank on, oh my gosh, I hope over half of people faced with death will bravely choose the blue. I mean, it's just unfathomable to think that it would even be close.
But I don't know where the contempt comes from, like on the red.
That I don't agree with. There shouldn't be contempt, like, other than just, I think they're just incredulous that anyone actually believes blue could win.
Because they're not even saying, look, your heart's in the right place, but you're not thinking this through. Instead, they're like calling everybody the R word, like in like mass numbers for lack of, I would say, regarded on this video call and in this video. They're using that word. I've seen that word so much in the past week. Like, wow, that's just, it's not even like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but it's not rational.
I can't defend those people. I don't know
you're
why
stupid and you deserve to die, and Darwinism is gonna do its job on you, and that's gonna be it. It's like this.
I think that, like, one thing I really disagree with those people is, like, there are a lot of people that are adamant that, like, it would be good for the world to get rid of the dumbest people. That's not at all who we're going to get rid of. We're just going to get rid of our biggest empaths. And, like, that's a net negative to the world to lose, like, really empathetic people, you know? Like, a bunch of, like, nurturing moms and, like, nannies and, like, people that you really want in society.
One guy said, the only reason why anybody would press blue is if they misunderstood the question. And I'm like, okay, do you have anybody in your life who you love who might misunderstand questions sometimes? Who said, oh,
yeah, well, that's why you want blue to win.
Right.
That's why you want blue to win, but it still won't, right? Like, that's where I'm coming from. It's just that, like, I just don't believe it really has any chance of winning. So just because some people will accidentally press blue, like, whether I know 5% of people will press blue or 10, it doesn't change anything. I can't press it. It's just an auto loss.
I guess where we fundamentally disagree, then, to try and wrap this up, where we fundamentally disagree is that you believe that in the heat of the moment, even though you say no adrenaline's involved in your decision,
for lots of people, yeah.
In the heat of the moment, that they will choose red as a as a survival instinct because that's what's going to be, and they're not going to think their vote matters. I believe that more people are going to have it in their head that I don't know how, if it depends on, I guess it depends on how many people, not that I'm saying you don't have enough people in your life who you care about to think about it. I'm just saying it depends on how many people are you going to be thinking of at the time where you're going to be saying, I don't know how this person's voting. I don't know how that person's voting. I don't know. Like, I've known my parents, I visit my parents I've been visiting them every week since I moved out when I was 19. So I know them very, very well. I still couldn't tell you how either one of them would answer that question. I've known my girlfriend for over 2 years and I love her very much. I had no idea how she would answer that question before I talked to her about it. So, and that's
right.
just them. So it's like, then there's all these other people. I don't know how these.
But then even with that logic, I would still stand there and think, okay, I can't leave my girls without a father and a husband.
Yeah.
So I can't push blue, and then 10% of the world pushes blue, and now they return home after pressing red, logically being right, and then they get home and their husband's gone, their dad's gone, their income provider's gone. What kind of father chooses blue? To me,
that I wouldn't understand because I'm not a parent. But
yeah, so like a lot of the blue voters who often don't have kids are saying, oh, well, all the parents will just push blue because what if their kids accidentally push blue?
Right. But
I don't know
the
a lot
other
of parents
would look at it the way you're
putting their life on the line and say, yeah, let me risk leaving my family fatherless and husbandless so that I can add a 0.00001% chance for blue to win. That doesn't make any sense. So I actually think the parents are going to plus red way more than anybody because they can't be leaving their kids without a family.
Well, I guess maybe I'm a little more. I mean, younger people who are voting also might think I have my whole life ahead of me. You know what I mean? I'm 41. Yeah. So maybe younger people.
Yeah, like I guarantee you, my dad would press blue. Yeah. Like my dad's like a California guy through and through. Like he's like, I've lived a good life. Like I'll toss in a blue vote. Like he really would, and he would genuinely believe it's the right thing to do, and he'd be willing to go down with the ship. But if people told me, hey, it's 49-49 right now, like the percentage wise, right? It's really close. There's like 100,000 votes left. It's coming down to the wire. Maybe then for a 1 in 100,000, and I know it's really close, maybe I'd push blue then.
Right.
Because it just feels like, all right, it's really starting to matter. Like I couldn't live with myself if I was like I told somebody on Twitter, like I was kind of joking, but I was like, if they release the results and blue lost by 1 vote, I'll seppuku myself, right? Like that's like that'd be the worst feeling ever. I mean, you'd feel so sick that you essentially murdered 4 billion people with your vote. But that's not going to happen. Like it's almost infinitely impossible that would happen. You're way more likely to win the lottery, by the way, than for that to happen. So it's like, are you willing to risk death? You buy a lottery ticket. You either win this lottery or you're dead. Who's buying the ticket? Who's buying that lottery ticket? You know you're not going to win.
If it was framed that way, again, if the question was framed that way to people in isolation, but framing is the most important thing, I think.
It is, yeah.
I think framing is the most important thing. And apparently, according to these polls, 57% or whatever thought that the framing warranted a blue victory, 50%. Yeah. But would they feel differently in a real life situation? I don't know. But we probably covered every angle of this that we can cover.
Yeah, no, this is fun. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad that we did this. Thanks for agreeing to do it with me when everybody else was too chicken shit to do it.
I think nobody wants to look like a bad guy. And because red is being labeled the selfish button, so nobody wants to advocate for it. But look, I think it's just important to clarify. Like, of course, you want blue to win. You know, like you're rooting for blue. You know, but again, people are like, oh yeah, I would campaign for blue. I wouldn't even do that. I can't be responsible for convincing my neighbors and friends and family to kill themselves.
Well, yeah, I don't know about
so
that.
I would,
I
don't think I could campaign for blue.
Then there's probably going to be a global effort to push for one button. If you're talking about
governments have to push for blue. You can't do a global effort to push red because the kids will get it wrong. lots of people will panic and get it wrong. You can't do it. If there's going to be a global campaign, it has to be for blue. But that's not the phrasing of the question. It wasn't that, hey, in a month after every government runs endless ads to push blue, and we're all going to vote. It was just suddenly you have to vote. So without a coordinated effort,
the way I framed it, not to take up even more time, but the way I framed it to somebody, this was my. Everyone had their own hypothetical that they came up with. This was my bizarre hypothetical that I came up with. If there's a politician running for office, and he says that, assuming that if he wins the election, he can do whatever he wants with no one else, controlling the situation. If the politician wins, he gets to do whatever he wants. If there's a politician running for office and he says, everyone who didn't vote for me is going into the gas chamber. So are people going to be thinking, we need to make sure this genocidal politician doesn't win? Or are they going to be thinking, I better vote for him so that I don't go in the gas chamber? And everybody else should be thinking the same way. That was kind of another way to look at it. And this guy I was talking to about that, he went back and forth with me, without really answering my question. He asked another question about, what if he said, if I lose, then everyone has to commit suicide? It's like, you won't have control if you lose. So you can't make everybody commit suicide. But he said, well,
I think the answer is obviously people wouldn't vote for that guy.
He said, your question doesn't make sense either, because there would be a system of checks and balances. And I'm like, no, that's a cop-out answer. I'm not talking about checks and balances. I'm talking about when
those don't exist anymore.
Yeah. He goes, a government would never let a politician get away with killing that many people. And I went, oh, okay, yeah, that's never happened. It's like,
no, and never. The original hypothetical also hinges on complete lunacy. Right. But somebody in my comment section said, I think the way you've interpreted it is just ridiculous. I said, well, the whole thing's ridiculous, so any interpretation is valid. He was like, actually, that's a fair point.
So this conversation we've just had is completely ridiculous, and we've both completely wasted our time, but it was for a good cause, I think.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thanks for having me on, Joey.
No problem, man. Anytime.